Welcome to Tuesday Newsday, your number one resource for the entire week's worth of VR news. Breakthrough research by Nvidia show that VR headsets may lose the term headset sooner than we think, with tiny VR glasses showing a lot of promise. Meta looking to lay off employees to cut back spending. This is the cheapest deal to get a VR headset right now, and a new omnidirectional treadmill fixes a lot of the problems of the past. That and so much more. Let's just get right into the news. So let's start this one off with the most Ready Player One thing possible: omnidirectional treadmills. Last year, I covered the very first consumer available treadmill, the Catwalk C, and I ended up really enjoying it, but the high cost, size of the unit, and some of its own drawbacks sort of led the Catwalk to be an expensive, hyper enthusiast VR accessory, something kind of hard to recommend to a lot of people. But just this past week, CatVR has announced the Catwalk C2, pretty much fixing a lot of the original problems a lot of people had with the device. First of all, I'll explain that this is pretty much closer to a slide mill than an actual treadmill. It operates by putting on slippery shoes that have foot tracking built in and have a super slippery material on the shoe itself, allowing you to slide along the walking surface as if you were walking normally. It's not a perfect walking gait, but after some practice, it does get easier and easier. But on to fixing the problems with the version 2. The original Catwalk C was pretty cool, but the newest edition adds better support for bending down and grabbing things. Haptics are built into the actual platform so the entire earth can shake underneath you. There's now support for side-to-side movement, there's a new sitting platform, the ability to jump, sprint, and swim, and new improved shoes. But the Catwalk C2 still isn't cheap, costing around $1,000 for a full unit on Kickstarter, but considering these devices historically have cost in the multiple of tens of thousands of dollars in the past, this isn't so bad. And the campaign seems to be going really well, CatVR reaching its funding goal within 5 minutes and now approaching the $1 million mark just a few days later. I do actually have one of these here, and I'm working on a video for it to release this weekend, so stay on the lookout for that one. Next up, a really quick one that I noticed, and this just goes along with the whole theme of VR headset form factors are likely about to really change up soon. We're talking about VR headsets smaller than a pair of ski goggles or even glasses within the next few years. I know I've talked about smaller VR headsets in the past, but recent breakthroughs in display technology have me thinking that this could happen sooner rather than later, and I have some ideas as to how the schism of VR hardware will take place. Take this for example. Display Week 2022 just occurred. This is the largest annual display event in the world where companies bring their latest screens of all sizes and resolutions to show off. And to give some context as to what's the best right now, some of the clearest, highest resolution VR headsets are Vario headsets, including the $2,000 Vario Aero. Well, according to David Heaney from Upload VR, this new 2.27-inch LCD display from JDI, matched with a set of super compact pancake lenses, presented him with, quote, clarity and sharpness beyond anything I've ever tried before, even the Vario Aero. And this video clip is kind of amazing actually. The displays carry a resolution of 3240 by 3240 per eye, and when matched with these pancake lenses, could potentially result in one of the best looking VR headsets resolution and clarity wise, rivaling even the king of clarity, the Aero, but in a really small and compact size, down to the size of the Arpara, which also seems to be having some issues. They still haven't launched their headset actually, but on to the next one. Further breakthroughs in display technology by Nvidia and Stanford are looking even more hopeful than just cutting down headset size. The whole term headset may be a thing of the past for certain segments of the VR industry before you know it. And in the future, you may be playing VR chat on something that looks more like this than this. Nvidia even claiming that not only is resolution potentially better, but there's improved light refraction, 3D imagery, and colors look far closer to how it should, using a pretty astonishingly thin set of 2.5mm holographic displays. And this is where things get pretty crazy. We're used to LCDs or OLEDs in our VR headsets, but holographic displays promise something entirely different. And it's kind of something that has me really excited for this technology, even if it's a little ways off. A traditional VR headset with two big lenses and two big LCD displays, for example, achieves its 3D-ish effect through binocular disparity. Put simply, the difference between two images rendered an appropriate distance apart, and our two eyes converge that image into one, giving some things a perception of depth. But that's not how the real world is, well, rendered by our eyes. Not only do we have binocular disparity in our vision, but objects have a real depth to them. And that depth is deciphered through light. Everything is actually three-dimensional. And this is where holographic displays get really cool. And the technology gets significantly more complex. Holographic displays provide actual 3D imagery, like the things rendered have light depth, mixed with binocular disparity, and you have about as close as you can possibly get to recreating the 3D stereoscopic nature of how our eyes render the real world. This is a pretty good explanation by a researcher at Stanford. Quote, holograms in displays basically means natural 3D images. By modulating the phase of the light instead of the amplitude, the system can provide focus cues in front of or behind the display panel plane. Compared to the current VR headset, which provides binocular disparity only, holograms naturally provide additional accommodation cues because of their unique light wave reconstruction mechanism, end quote. And that's where this prototype comes in, made to prove the concept that VR headsets don't have to be big, bulky headsets, and can instead potentially be not only small enough to wear all day comfortably, but also be better at their core at creating immersive 3D environments. And this is pretty fun because this is literally as cutting edge as it possibly gets for VR display tech. The possibilities are very exciting, but that doesn't mean it's gonna be easy. The reason we don't see holographic display tech all over headsets now or even other screens is that manufacturing these displays is extremely expensive right now since demand is practically non-existent. And the calibration needed to make these work is very computation heavy. The team having to make an entirely new complex algorithm for the light phasing to work properly. And well, technically this prototype is only capable of 28 degrees field of view, but they say that number can easily be increased substantially, and this was only a proof of concept. But it's still very exciting, and I think we're gonna see holographic display technology pop up more and more as we tread into the future of VR. This prototype was created with the goal of making VR headsets more comfortable and to invigorate research across the industry into holographic displays to prove that it's possible so others can do it as well. And they believe strongly in it. Quote, holographic display is the only viable solution so far that provides 3D images in a glasses form factor. Since the users want something lightweight, cool, and very immersive, I think the industry will eventually adopt holographic displays as a standard, end quote. And I personally can imagine the future where standalone headsets are these bigger, bulkier devices because they use onboard computing, while PC VR headsets could potentially get smaller and smaller since their computing is done by a computer. But of course, there's no way to know exactly where it's gonna go. All in all, it's just something that I'm really keeping my eyes on, and it's really exciting. I can't wait to try one of these. But now it's time for a meme break. Wait, this guy taped his Quest controller to the front of a bicycle, put on his headset, and then made a whole game to ride his bike around a track while wearing the headset in unlimited play space mode. Yeah, nothing could go wrong. Okay, no, for real though, this is a really cool concept and it's something I'd love to try out. It's a pretty radical idea. I just imagine being in the headset thinking you're still on the track riding your bike, but you're not. Anyways, back to the news. Meta has been blowing money in the XR industry like crazy. With an estimated $20 billion loss by the end of this year, it looks like this will lead the company to lay off a bunch of employees for cutbacks. A Meta spokesperson telling Reuters that the Reality Labs division is unable to afford some projects and that others are going to be postponed. And this doesn't stop at just Reality Labs from Meta. Facebook is also experiencing a hiring freeze, with Mark Zuckerberg stating the company will slow the pace of some of its investments. And this is kind of ironic considering Meta just went on a 10,000 person hiring spree last year for people working specifically in the XR industry, but I had a feeling that their spree couldn't last for too long. The whole market right now is kind of looking pretty sus as is, and Meta said that these layoffs are not part of the cost-cutting measures at Reality Labs, but of course, Meta is still working on lots of projects. Last week, we got to see a pretty okay mixed reality demo featuring a blurred-out Project Cambria showing off a virtual pet that you can have in your real play space using color pass-through. And this is also a demo that can be played on a Quest 2, but you'll be missing out on the color pass-through part. And I've definitely seen better mixed reality, and I'm hoping that the Cambria looks better than this, but we at least got to see some of what it's capable of. However, there's an even more interesting blurb of meta news from this past week. How do you feel about hyper-realistic avatars in VR? So imagine you're in VR chat or PokerStars. Would you choose to have a super realistic representation of yourself in those virtual worlds rather than what you currently use? Well, back in 2019, Facebook started work on something called codec avatars, which is essentially that, a hyper-realistic avatar rendered in real time off of a crazy system of cameras and machine learning techniques. And they've just made quite a bit of progress on the work. We're seeing right now Meta's first custom silicon in the form of an add-on chip that takes care of most of the hard AI computation needed to build these codec avatars, and then the Quest 2's XR2 takes care of the rendering, now allowing for up to 5 of these super high-fidelity avatars to be rendered at once on one headset. Meta and Mark Zuckerberg see these realistic avatars as being one of the many personas you can have in VR. You can have your cat girl for chilling in VR chat, but then when it comes to work in VR, you'll be expected to look fully human and realistic. Something I understand, but I'm really resistant to. I mean, I don't even show my face on the internet, and I kind of like that, but I guess we do see some of the benefits. I'm just curious what everybody else thinks as well. But back to reality and the current virtual reality, the Quest 2 is still a pretty good buy right now, and if you're looking for a deal, Meta is currently selling certified refurbished 128GB Quest 2s for only $250, which is pretty much the best deal that's ever been offered for a VR headset as capable as the Quest 2, and it still comes with a warranty. Plus, the Quest 2 is getting lots of really weird additions from third parties as well, including probably one of the biggest features coming to the upcoming Cambria. Voxels recently showed off a $99 camera upgrade to the Quest 2 called the Focus, a system that brings full-color stereoscopic pass-through to the Quest 2, probably one of the biggest things I'm looking forward to on Meta's next expensive headset. Well, besides from the eye tracking and face tracking, of course. And I'm really curious to see what people can do with Focus and with color pass-through in mixed reality, because believe me, if you've ever seen full, really good mixed reality in full color, it's pretty insane. But anyways, now it's time for question of the week from Sultan of Sick. Whatever happened with the Valve Decker that everyone seems so sure was on the cusp of being announced? Do you think Valve has anything VR up their sleeves by the end of this year, or was that the Steam Deck all along? And honestly, I think a lot of us super VR enthusiasts got a little overexcited by the tons of patents getting leaked, certain Steam VR updates, and Valve's own weird antics, and I think we overlooked the fact that Steam Deck was still yet to be shipped, and the deck was likely Valve's main priority. There is certainly something on its way from Valve, but my own estimates moved back tremendously after the first round of leaks led nowhere. It did seem at the time like Valve was on its way to at least tease something new, but they didn't. And honestly, the whole Steam Deck and Deckard thing was a massive learning experience for me, and I'm sure lots of others that cover VR industry stuff as well. I'm not sure if something's on its way this year, but I do know that Valve's making something, and it's gonna be pretty cool. And as soon as I know anything concrete about it, you know I'm gonna be covering it. But that was question of the week. Make sure to leave your own down below, and I may just answer yours next. But again, I'm curious, how do you feel about these hyper-realistic avatars? Or are you looking forward to smaller VR headsets in these coming breakthroughs? I will also be streaming after this on Twitch, so come on by and say what's up and we can chat about VR, or come into my Discord server so we can do the same. Thank you to all of my Patreon supporters, especially my Omegas. I couldn't do any of this without you, and don't forget to like this video if you loved it, subscribe if you want more of this, and hit that freaking bell if you just can't live without it. Much love, Thrill out.